press the bell icon on the YouTube app to never miss a video from News Laundry.
This is a News Laundry podcast and you're listening to Highway on my podcast with Rocky, Mayur and Abhinandan.
We're back!
We're hungry!
And we are back on Highway on my podcast with the two biggest men in Indian food and travel, Rocky and Mayur.
Is that a yawn or a cry?
That's a Tarzan call, man. What the hell?
Okay.
Or a call for dinner?
That's a Naga from a Konyak tribe coming to collect your head.
And joining us also is Prashant Sareen, producer, director extraordinaire, also co-producer and co-director of many shows with Rocky and Mayur. And my name is Abhinandan Sekhri. And today we are taking you through the windy highways of Mizoram and Meghalaya. And in case you're saying why we've clubbed these two together, we are not saying that these two themselves don't have enough to fill an hour. We just didn't spend enough time in Mizoram civilian areas. We only spent time in a very, very specific military area. So that is why we have clubbed these two together. So gentlemen, what would you like to start with? The time when Rocky broke his leg?
I want to fight the gorilla like a gorilla.
Okay.
Now you know why I was doing that.
So in case you wonder which gorilla Rocky is talking about, it's not the silverback. This is the counter-insurgency and jungle warfare school. It's in Warangte in Mizoram. It is where they train lethal commandos to take on guerrillas who are hiding out, whether they're Naxals or other outfits in the forest. And we spent, first we'll get to how we spent the time there. Mayur, please recall getting there. That aircraft which I didn't even want to climb.
I don't remember that, but I just want to say that we are very confidently able to tell people that it's the counterinsurgency jungle warfare school and exactly where it is. Because they're so good at jungle warfare that even if you went there and you knew exactly what it was, you'd never be able to find it. And they'd come and kill you.
Yeah, and you wouldn't even know that they've killed you. So you'd even come back acting normal and then suddenly you realize that you're actually dead a while ago.
Yes.
That's how good they are.
You look dead. Yes, I've been to Mizoram.
But Warangte in Mizoram is the CIJWS, the Counterinsurgency Jungle Warfare School, where they teach you how to fight the gorilla like a gorilla. So they use gorilla tactics to beat gorilla tactics. And I walked in there, of course, and immediately I said, Tarzan, Kriga, Bundolo. And of course, they had no idea what I was talking about because I had mistaken the gorilla for the gorilla. So this is Guerilla, the gorilla.
But hang on a minute. They teach soldiers how to avoid snake bites. And then civilians like you land up there and...
I don't want to talk about it. I'm going.
मैंने नहीं खेला, मेरी wickets are balls.
मैं नहीं खेल रहा, मैं जा रहा हूँ.
Achha, but Nico, I don't remember this flight there. What happened? Tell us.
What happened was we
got into a twin engine disaster.
Yeah, basically it was a very small plane that took us from, I think, to Aizawl or from Aizawl to some other airport. And then from there, this, military vehicle came to pick us up, this bus. But that aircraft was like, just, I think it had 30, 40 seats. And I was like, are you sure we want to get in there? And well, we did get in there. And then finally it was a long trip getting to the counterinsurgency jungle warfare school. But once we got there, man, it was one of the most exciting and interesting shoots that, at least for me.
I know that forest, yeah, it is incredibly thick and dense, that forest. You can't see anything at all. I mean, there are some vantage points where if you get to a height, you can look over the canopy of the forest, but then there's nothing you can see except the tops of trees. It is really dense forest.
So we will tell you about eating crow, bat, snake, squirrel, and many such delicacies, because that's how you survive in the forest. And then we will also get to the more civilian areas of Meghalaya, where we had the more Khasi food, a matter of taste cafe, and Jado stalls. And that was a nice regular experience.
By the way, I love this format that you operated, Niku. It's like, you're going to tell jokes, but first you say, here are all the punchlines. Now I will continue to tell you the jokes.
These are not the punchlines. This is called a teaser.
These are teasers.
These are teasers.
Showing the podcast equivalent of an ankle.
Of an ankle.
I'm sorry, but your slip is showing and I can see up to mid-thigh. Because what you should mention is that we ate some incredible things that you wouldn't believe could be eaten. We went to some interesting places that you didn't think existed. We heard some sounds that we couldn't believe the music was from Shillong and Mizoram. You don't have to give away everything. We ate this, but we'll tell you more about it. What the hell is that?
That is called a teaser. And you lucky man should have seen my thigh.
It's like Christmas. You know what present Santa is going to bring you.
So we spent, I think, about 3 days, if I'm not wrong, and we shall not tell you how Rocky broke his ankle on this podcast. That
He
for
broke his
that, we'll
ankle also.
tell you-
Yeah.
Yes, he broke his ankle also, but that we'll tell you in the newsletter. So to know
Listen,
how Rocky,
I should warn you guys beforehand. This is a very secretive space. Please don't take any specific names or talk about specific actions. Otherwise, you'll be in deep trouble. All we can tell you is that bad things happen to good people. That's it.
or as someone says in that show, when man like dog, good man. Dog like man, good man.
Yeah. There you go.
So I'll just set the context and then boys, please tell me, because you participated in all that survival. Here they teach you how to survive, because one part of course, tackling, killers who are out to kill you in the wild is first, before you encounter them, how do you not die of hunger and thirst? So they teach you how to collect water and eat many things. Now, the non-veg part is easy because there are many things you can catch in the forest to survive. Mayur, is there any place for such gorillas? Veggie gorillas? Is there such a thing as a veggie gorilla? What did you learn there?
Yaar, hona chahiye. You'd think when you move to a forest, especially one like the way these dense forests are, there should be herbs, and they had a row of different types of tubers and herbs and leaves and stuff that you can eat. So what do you mean that there's nothing for vegetarians? Gorillas kya? Matlab बंदर को पकड़ के थोड़ा ना खाते हैं gorillas.
Okay, here's a scenario. You've been dropped in the middle of a forest. Now hark back to what you learned there. What are you eating? What are you looking for now? You have no food. You just have your backpack with armed ammunition, gun, and a water bottle. Now what are you looking for?
Yeah, and remember, Mayur, remember your training, because in 3 days we learned what they teach in months. We are now forest experts. So
I know what you are doing. You are looking for the enemy camp because they'll have food.
Spot on.
Yes, the winner, Nikla.
And dead enemies don't eat lunch, my friend.
Nikku, तुझे कुछ नहीं पता अभी. Suddenly you're going to like nod when you laugh right now, and you'll find that I've just visited, and your head will roll off gently off your shoulders.
And I'll be sitting at your dining table and having your dinner.
So that's how veggies survive. So Mayur says, मैं भी enemy के यहाँ से lunch करके आता हूँ. Meanwhile, Rocky, तू अपना collect कर ले. So Rocky, what all did you learn how to eat?
Well, food is, it's incredible. Now, you remember when you're in forests like this, you are typically on your feet. You've been dropped behind enemy lines or around enemy camps. And typically you'll be in that scenario for a number of days. In about 48 hours, you start losing complete coherence and function and energy, etc. if you don't get good, nutritious food. So you have to keep your body's energy reserves up, and you can't carry an infinite amount because you're a single man in the middle of a forest. You might be a group of people, but each one of you is carrying ammunition on your back. You're carrying your changes, your equipment, your weapon, everything you need, you're carrying. So it's very, very important that you are able to live off the land, which is how they call it. And living off the land means food and shelter and heat and a fire, etc. These are things that you need to make on your own when you land there. So you'll have something to start a fire with, but you'll need to find your food. So for non-vegetarians or meat eaters, it is a lot easier than you think, because these forests are alive with everything. And the first thing that we did when we landed there was, I walked into the forest, I looked around, I saw an interesting looking snake trying to run. I grabbed hold of it, put it in a jar and put it under a table to say, let this cool in the shade. I will catch it again on the shot and show it to you.
In your dreams. First thing when we landed, we said, "यार, हम survival बाद में करेंगे, अपना mess दिखाओ. जरा हम खा पी के जरा जाएं forest में."
Yeah. You remember after that flight and that tooth-rattling bus journey in the bus where our teeth were about to fall out by the time we reached, and we landed there looking like, we'd been rescued from a island after 6 months, and they said, in 15 minutes, there's reporting time where you will get to eat a snack and then go into the forest for the shoot. And you're like, 15 minutes.
I remember that. But Rocky, I remember I didn't think he'd actually try the snake. I'll let him tell you how the snake bit him. And although it was a non-poisonous snake, and I said, can we carry on shooting? And Rocky said, I'm fine. There was a bit of blood and stuff. They said, no, army protocol states that when you're bitten by a snake, you have to do certain things. That means you go to the hospital and you will spend the night there and you cannot come out, because that is the protocol. So it doesn't matter whether it's poisonous or non-poisonous, even though it's non-poisonous. So Rocky, we sent him packed dinner as he lay in the hospital, while Mayur and me were having drinks in the mess with the boys.
Yes,
So,
that was very kind of you. But here's my story, my side of the story now. When we reached that place, the first shot was going to be about what you need to eat in the forest, how you live off the land. And they had a whole range of exotic foods that you could eat, which they'd caught in the forest. One was, of course, a bird, one was a frog, one was insects, one was
crab,
something else.
squirrel, wasps, all
Yeah,
that stuff.
all these things. And then there was a snake. And the snake was a snake-eating snake, the best I could tell. So they had cooked it and put it to a side. But of course, while I was there, I saw a snake in the forest. So I went and grabbed it and I put it in a bottle. And I put the bottle in a really cool place, thinking that, it'll get cool in the next 1 or 2 hours and then we can shoot with it. Now, before we were going to shoot with it, some guy must have seen it lying in the shade and put it in the sun. And then before we started shooting, somebody put it back. So when we picked up the bottle, the snake was fully charged. And then because there was a snake-eating snake that we were eating, actually, it was all over my hands because I had eaten the snake for the shot and it was quite tasty. I'll tell you about how it tasted later. So in a combination of that, when we put the snake out and I tried to catch it, it panicked so badly that first it bit me and chewed on my hand. And then when I removed it from my hand, it bit itself and chewed on itself.
Yeah, I remember that.
He's like, पहले वाला bite tasty नहीं था, second वाला try करते हैं.
Of course, then the trainers that identify the snake, this is a non-poisonous snake. It is found quite commonly here. So we said, okay, then we can continue. They said, no, protocol requires he's okay for the next couple of hours. You finish the shoot, then he has to spend the night in the hospital. That was that. But I will tell you we have photographs. If you subscribe to the newsletter, you'll get the photographs of this amazing shoot. They make cups, ladles, plates with the bamboo, everything there. They make ways to collect water, how it drips, little pipes, all using everything there. And that's how they train people. And I think Mayur was asking them about the science of subah raat ko aise wo pipe lagate hain, subah tak pani bhar jata hai. They had made, to the extent, they had also made even beer mugs out of the bamboo.
Yeah. Listen, that's also because Mizoram is practically all bamboo. I mean, that's why it forms a very, very integral part of their cuisine also. They ferment it, they cook it raw, they smoke it and they mix with everything. And that is why Mizoram also has that really interesting phenomenon. Every 48, 50 years, the two species of bamboo they have there, that flowers and you get those seeds which are called bamboo rice. And at the same time, because of that, you get all the rats. The rats get a huge burst in the population of rats because they're eating that. And then they finish eating all the bamboos and of course they're not full, then they go out and they lay waste to the crops. So in the 1950s, they actually had a famine after this happened. And then 45, 48, 49 years later, 2003, they had a handle on it. So like bamboo is in everything.
Yes. And that is why the Indian Army contributes in all good ways. And it says that if you're trapped in the forest, eating things like rats will keep you alive, give you a lot of energy. Also eating things like, crows and ants and insects. So that is what we ate. But, the snake tastes strange to eat. It is a combination of sort of chicken and fish. And the texture of it is a little harder than that of fish and a little chewier and more fibrous than chicken. So it was quite an interesting meat to have. Of course, the crow was terrible. Crows are not meant for eating, but I guess if you're going to die, you're going to eat whatever you can find, which includes my vegetarian friend. I've seen him eat in a state of death. He would be eating crow. More ways than one.
So,
thank you.
But the one thing I remember there is they also teach you how to avoid traps, because typically the kind of training these guys do, when they go, let's say they're taking on, the Naxals and Dantewada, there they lay a lot of traps. Suddenly a ball of thorn will come and hit you. So how to avoid traps and also how to lay traps. And they had a lot of these really lethal looking traps that they showed of the dead man's fall and the ball of thorns and stuff. And then they also have this one training area where there is water that splashes around, but it's red in color. And
No. But first, let's talk about the traps here. How can you get over the traps? They're so fantastic because everything that you've seen in a movie, including the trap where you put your foot and then suddenly you get hung upside down from the tree, that can be made. The trap where you walk and then suddenly spikes come out of a tree and impale you, that can be made. There's traps which sort of, just go crazy. And then, of course, they showed us snipers or remember, these are very, very thick forests in places like Mizoram. So there are forest trails and people can only walk on those trails. If you're going to walk into the forest, and a lot of naive people ask me, they say, why can't you just walk through the forest and not walk on the trail? Because the forest is so thick that you can't take one step into it. There's 100 plants growing there. You can't even put your hand inside in some places. The forest is that thick. There are 10 kinds of thorns, 5 kinds of plants, 6 kinds of shoots and, vines growing over there. So it's impossible. So when you're walking there, and we were walking, and I remember we were getting ready for the shot, and we walked that patch, and this guy told us about the traps and, how to attack the enemy without sort of the enemy knowing. And then when we started shooting, as we were walking, suddenly these 4 guys jumped up from around us who were completely
Yeah, man.
camouflaged there.
Yeah.
You couldn't even tell they were there.
Yeah, and they jumped up screaming. So I've never squealed like that in my life. Mayur and I both hugged each other and we cried and we squealed like little piggies. Mayur, do you remember your cry? Your war cry?
That's pretty vegetarian walk, right? Very curdled.
Listen, these are
milk.
people that go into the
Paneer.
forest and eat everything, and they have guns.
Yeah.
Right.
My cry was something like, oh,
But it's very serious training, the fun and games aside. And, one of the things that we learned there, and it's unfortunate that this is how it happens, and, for whatever reason. They said they have several trainers there, and the trainers told us that, when the people from the Indian army come, then you train them how to survive in the forest. But he says the problem is when people from various state polices send their forces, or they send someone from maybe the CRPF, or he says some of the people who come there from the police force, they come for like 4 weeks, 6 weeks. He says when an army guy comes, I know this guy can run 60 kilometers without stopping. That is the starting point for survival. He says some of the police guys who come, their tones are so big that in 4 weeks, I'm just going to, I can just about teach them how to run 30 kilometers. So we don't even get to the stage of surviving in the wild. That is why there's no point coming here for a 6-week course unless you have the fitness of like, a cadet or some of the Jawans that they come there. So it's really tough, man. And hats off to the guys who do this like day in and day out and living up there. It must be hard.
Yeah, it was very hard. In fact, I remember some police guy had caught a bird and he was threatening it and saying, tell all the birds to bring their food for us this evening. Otherwise, you're going to be in trouble. So all the birds brought dinner for them at night. I remember that.
Okay, not to rain on the police parade. But yeah, basically what we understood from the military trainers was that the cops aren't exactly the best fitness to send them into the forest to fight anyone because they're not equipped to fight anyone. But now let's get back to the other training, where we were shooting. So there there's water everywhere and it's red in color. And they said that is so that when these guys are actually in a situation and there's blood splashing everywhere, it should not kind of make them disconcerted. So at the training stage, every liquid that splashes, whether it's water, is red in color. So that was another thing that we learned while we were there.
Yeah, it was scary. I mean, you've got to remember, these guys are highly trained, very, very capable individuals, and they still need to play all these mind games. But the fact that while they're training in the field, all around them is live fire. So you've got to consider that, keep that in mind. One mistake on anybody's part, any lack of attention on part of either the guy who's shooting or the guys who are training or the guys who's controlling the training, anybody goes wrong, the consequences are unthinkable. So this should give you an idea. There are bullets being fired which are hitting the ground and splashing people with dark red, thick water. And that's how close they come to live fire every day in the training. So this is not a joke. This is really serious training.
Hang on, was this the place where they had those grooves cut into the ground, and then we were watching, and they were all there were like 8 of them in a square, and then they were all firing at different angles without this.
They go in formation. That's right.
So this is the place where we did the sequence where we pretended to enter a house, and Rocky and I were supposed to storm the house.
Yes.
And then we pretended to drop a grenade and then ran off in opposite directions.
Yeah,
Yes.
That's the one. Now, coming to the mess. Rocky, you didn't eat at the mess. But what was your food that we sent you at the hospital like? Was it nice?
No, it was horrible. They didn't let me eat anything. Not even the beer that we smuggled. They said, you just eat the hospital food because that's all you can have. That was terrible. It was traumatic.
There was a lady doctor there, and Rocky kept trying to wheedle her into like at least giving him permission to have some beer.
Yes.
She's like
Get that
laughing, saying no.
But meanwhile, Mayur and I were in the mess because after a really hard day of training, they said in the evening you come to the mess, we'll have a drink and then we'll have dinner there. And that's something I really like about the forces, that bloody you work hard, you are drained, you are like completely spent, and then you have a nice cold dinner. And all these guys who had that, that camouflage paint on them and stuff, they're scrubbed clean with their shirts tucked in, they're looking absolutely dapper. And then they're all laughing and joking and telling you all sorts of interesting stories about the many adventures they've had. Some of them were so young, man. I was like blown away.
In fact, very often you can't even recognize them in the evening. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. I can't tell
they
you
look
that.
so different.
No, you can't. Yeah, I mean, it's like during the day they look like predators. Yeah, I mean, some of them are scary. You know, their eyes and the
even the
way they
expressions
approach
change
you.
in the evening. They're much gentler. They're sort of. They're just a different person. It's a different personality.
Yeah, that's what I keep telling people. You know, when you look at Mayur and me in a normal state, you know, we're very sweet and friendly. But if you come across us in the line for buffet and you come in front of us and you look at our eyes, a shiver will run down your spine. You won't be able to move.
You won't be able to move because we will have trampled over you on the way to the buffet table.
Yeah, that too.
But Rocky, the next day you were sitting with some of those soldiers and cleaning the guns with them. So what was that like? Did they teach you how to take it apart and put it back together? Like, that they said that you have to be able to in the dark. And that's another training they have. You have to be able to put it together, whatever, in 24 seconds. I don't know. I don't even remember.
Yeah, their qualifying time is...
They assemble the assault rifle and put it together because I think the spring heats or whatever. And I think Rocky was trying that in the morning with them while they were cleaning.
Yeah, so I mean, I had free time and, all night I was doing nothing. So I was really bored in the morning. So I got hold of these guys and they said, come, we'll teach you how to reassemble a weapon after cleaning it. You get a lot of weapons jams and stuff like that in these sort of forest environments. You have to clean your weapon regularly. So they made me practice it about 40 or 50 times. And then they put a blindfold on me and they said, now take the whole gun apart, put the pieces down in the order you've been taught, and then clean the barrel and wipe the gun down and then put the pieces back without looking at anything. And that was really difficult. I mean, of course, I practiced it like 50, 60 times. So it was a lot easier than you would think. But it was very hard to do it blindfolded. I think I managed it in about 1.5 minutes and they were doing it in less than 30 seconds. But I mean, you can't compare.
That's Rocky's version. The actual thing, when they put the blindfold on him, he says, "Acha lagdi tang, kaun hai den?"
Yeah. Well, I can tell you this, that you guys might have seen the dangerous side of these boys. But when they took me out the next morning, we had a beautiful setup where there were these dummies at the bottom of a gradual hill. And you had to run down with your bayonets and stick the bayonet in the chest of the dummy while shrieking your war cry to curdle the blood of the dummy. And of course, I, in my excitement with the bayonet sticking, went down faster than anyone else. And before I could hit the dummy, I tripped and broke my ankle. And they were all laughing at me for half an hour because they were like, "Sir, pehli bari dekha hai that the dummy has defeated one of the men." We have seen many men defeating the dummy, but the first time dummy has defeated man.
So that was Varangte, and
that I might just add, that is how I knew that the snake was highly poisonous, because that poison was running in my blood the next day. That's why I fell down. Otherwise, I'm infallible.
You just spat at the dummy when you ran past and the venom in your spittle, thanks to the snake, the dummy went up in flames.
देखा तू होता तो ऐसी problem नहीं होती मेरे को.
But that was, Rocky's ankle wasn't actually broken. That he just sprained it. He actually fractured it that same evening. But how, we will tell you in the newsletter. And we shall also send you photographs, which is why the episodes after that, Rocky was on a wheelchair and Mayur was wheeling him around. It was, I think, the first time we had like a 2-anchor setup where one anchor was wheeling the other anchor around. So after Varangte, we went to Meghalaya. And Meghalaya, Rocky, Mayur, Prashant, we've been there so many times in the last few years. I think we've seen Shillong deteriorate in the last 15 years from being this pristine, uncluttered place to traffic jams. By the way, before I get my geography wrong, and Cherrapunji is in Meghalaya, na?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Because I remember that drive was so beautiful until we got there. So let me first go to Prashant. Our first trip to Shillong, Prashant, what do you remember?
My first trip to Shillong is yet to happen. I have never been to the Northeast. I mean, that is the one big hole in my travels. No, I have not. And I can't really, I can't tell you how sad I am about that, because that's such a huge area that I've missed out.
Lovely, man.
So much food
out there. You have the abode of the clouds, Meghalaya. When you enter it and you start approaching Shillong, when you're on the way, you come across this beautiful big lake called Bada Pani, and as you cross it, the clouds gather overhead to let you know that you've reached the abode of the clouds. And then you're in the cloud, man. What a beautiful state it is, though, isn't it?
Sure.
Yeah, man. And Prashant, don't worry about it. You haven't been to the Northeast. You just listen to the Home podcasts. We'll take you to every state and give you behind-the-scenes stories also. For example, we can tell you the first time we went from Guwahati to Shillong, we got stuck in one of the mother of all traffic jams.
Yes.
And on our side, it wasn't so bad. It was the opposite side where all the trucks were bringing the stuff from Meghalaya into Assam, where it was a mess, but it still took us a long time. We got there late at night the first time.
And in our several years there, each time, because they were basically widening that road all the way up past Shillong also.
It's been completed now.
It's been complete. I'm glad now people are zipping up and down, because all through the time when it was being constructed, every year we were encountering those traffic jams. But it is a wonderful drive from the point of view of the kind of, scenery you see and the mountains and the lush green bits. But Mayur, tell us about the first trip. Yeah, what did we eat in Meghalaya? In my head, they are mesh, like one knot, which I can't tell one from the other.
Sabse pehle, when we went there on the way, and this now Rocky and I made a habit out of it, we always stop, is when you're driving from Guwahati to Shillong, as you get into Meghalaya, on the left side on the highway, you have all these temporary little shacks with these ladies, and they've got like all these pickles lined up. The bhoot jolokia pickle and bamboo shoot pickle and stuff. And they give you fresh pineapple from the forest, sliced with red chilies on it.
Yes,
and you stand there and you eat that, man. And that
So
is
good.
so good.
Yum.
Yeah. In fact, when you get out from Guwahati and you start driving towards Shillong, the first place we always stopped at traditionally, and we still do, is Nongpo. Mayur, don't you remember Nongpo?
Nongpo.
Yeah, Nongpo is like, it's about 45-50 kilometers from Shillong, as far as I remember, and that's about an hour and a half, 2 hour drive in the hills.
What did we eat?
Nongpo is that place where the ducks were. Don't you remember?
Oh, right. Yes.
A nice restaurant with really nice vegetables and dal and momos, and we were hanging around. A lot of kids running around. These beautiful ducks in the water. Very fancy place.
That's also grown over the years. I mean, the last time we went there, it had a staircase going up.
Yeah. First time we went, there was a young lady who was making momos and thukpa and just basic food and serving us in a very, very basic restaurant. And the last time we went there, which is about 7 years ago, the first time I went there was about 14 years ago. It had become a really nice big restaurant, like with lots of parking and stuff. So yeah, that place really changed.
Yeah, we stopped there several times, and they
it's like a highway stop, is it?
That's like the midway between Guwahati Airport and Shillong.
It's where everybody stops. And then you come to the two lakes, which is the Bada Pani and Chota Pani, which the first time, of course, it was so dark we couldn't see Jack. But then ever since, we've seen several. I wonder if that is... Now Shillong must have extended all the way up to there, right? I'm sure you can't separate Bada Pani, Chota Pani from Shillong.
No,
abhi bhi hai. You still do that drive, but the city is bigger and it's more crowded. But to come back to your question, the first time we were there, we'd already heard about the music and stuff. So we were looking for like a cafe or a venue where we could go to, where we could eat and then enjoy that culture. But before that, we went to a very small stall. It was run by a mother and a daughter, and we went to a Jado stall. That was the first time we tried Jado.
They also had some special rice, a red rice or something, right? Jado's rice, right?
That's Jado, yeah. So you get either you get Jado. Jado is basically rice, which is made with the pig's blood and different organ meat. So when they cook it, instead of cooking it with water, they cook it with pig's blood and different organ meat, and that's why Jado has the sort of taste that it has. And it's very hearty, and it'll keep you full and ready to go and party. Or they have Jastiam. Jastiam is rice.
With turmeric, is it?
Yeah. So Jastiam is, they have beautiful ginger and turmeric in that area, which is, the things that they really have, which are brilliant in that region. First of all, let's just talk about the ingredients. The turmeric is extraordinary. The cinnamon is out of the world. They have some of the finest cinnamon I have in India. I've had. The pineapples are wonderful. And of course, the betel nut here.
And there's pork everywhere. And there's there's just so much of pork, man. Wherever you see, there are pigs being carried around. There's just so much of pork there, man.
But the turmeric is by far the most most wonderful. In fact, it's the highest concentration of curcumin that you find in any turmeric in the world is in the Meghalaya turmeric.
Is it because of rainfall?
I'm not sure. I think it's Hawa Pani.
It's Hawa Pani. And if you go Hawa Pani se yaad hai, if you go to Cherrapunji, and I've been there, it's beautiful. First, you pass all these wonderful hilltops, which sort of make a bowl with 7 waterfalls falling in. And of course, it doesn't happen during the dry season. But come the rainy season, there's so much rain over there. It's the rainiest place in the world. There's more than, I think, 1,400 millimeters of rain, if I remember correctly, which is quite ridiculous. That amount of rain. is mad. And when you sort of get up there, the first thing that you see while coming to Cherrapunji is that all these waterfalls have come alive here. So there's beautiful visuals. So if you ever decide to go to Meghalaya, go down there in the rainy season if you have the guts here, because that is just a sight to behold. And then when you get to Cherrapunji, as you walk off, you realize that when you step off the road, the entire ground is soft like a sponge. And if you stand anywhere for more than 10 seconds, the water just comes out of the ground and surrounds your foot. I mean, it's almost like you're sinking into the ground and water is coming out. It was just unique. And there they have these big things which are full of betel nut, where they ferment, where they prepare that betel nut for selling.
Kwai. They call it kwai.
But even during the dry season, it's really nice. But Shillong, the one thing that really struck me about Shillong was that place which had that pastry kind of stuff, and the bands. Yeah, you have, Shillong is like a small town. It is a small town, right? Now, for a town that small, the amount of places, at least back then, that you had that have bands playing, that have really good music, really trendy places serving good food, just chillax kind of joints, is amazing. And what I was told was that you pick up a person at random on the streets of Shillong and tell them to sing, they will be pitch perfect. I mean, that is and I think it was a Shillong choir that won that India's Got Talent or something, right?
Oh, the Aroha, yeah, they did. But and we went and shot. There's the Shillong choir. There is also the Aroha choir. The Aroha is the other one that's run by our friend Pauline Vajri. Pauline is just the most wonderful, talented musician who also sort of, she's the elder sister of the gentleman who runs the Shillong choir. And she is just brilliant. And, there's just some beautiful music coming out of Shillong. I mean, they've always been very musical. The three big tribes of Meghalaya are the Jaintias, the Khasis,
the Garo, and the Jaintias.
Garo and the Jaintias, yeah. The Khasi and the Jaintias and the Garos. And these are the largest number. And there are many other tribes. But these guys are so musical, and it's so beautiful to just sort of go anywhere. And music is such an important part of everybody's life. So, especially around Shillong and all, when you go to any house or any cluster in the evening or during the early morning, you can hear some sort of music playing, and it was wonderful to be there.
What was the place where that gentleman with the white beard was playing a song? He had these rock and roll kind of posters in his joint, and we had like those rolls and pastries there.
I think that was called the Matter of Taste Cafe. They had an open mic night. That was on the first trip, I think, that we went.
Yeah.
It was like a cafe with burgers and sandwiches and stuff. I mean, the food was just okay. But that whole vibe, it was like done out like a modern cafe. And then they had open mic nights. They had live music. We weren't there when they had the live music. But I did remember it was one of the first, very few times on Highway on My Plate where we actually went out and we went to a club for a little while just to see what the thing was. We shot a little bit there. I want to say we either shot the food court or in the nightclub.
That's right. It had all these fancy lights happening.
Yeah, it was very nice. And they also had it was also art. They were selling art. They had like an art gallery on the walls, had artists, paintings by local artists.
Yeah.
So it was very cool. It was sort of a cultural hotspot, with like music and live music acts and art and decent food, nice coffee, good place to hang out, a lot of young people, a lot of older people. And that's what strikes you most about Shillong when you get there. It's not just the young people who are out having a good time. Everybody's out partying in the evening here. So good.
One of my favorite places in Shillong where we stayed was, we stayed at this really quaint hotel. It was like this big bungalow they had made into a hotel where each had a different theme. It was run by a German man and an Indian wife, or German wife for the Indian guy, right? What it was called?
That was much later. That was the show. We went there to like either have the spiciest something or that was a much more recent trip, which is why we can't remember it. Short-term memory loss. Long-term, ask us about anything, no problem.
You're not used to posh places, you see.
That's
but you've listed something called the Delhi Mishtan Bhandar in Shillong. I have no recollection of this. What did we eat at Delhi?
We went there and they had like, it was like a proper mithai shop. They had hot samosas and kachoris and jalebis. And then Rocky had a conversation and it turned out to own the house, or they were living in the house. They owned the house where Rocky's grandfather or grand uncle used to be when he was in charge of that whole area in the army.
No, my grandfather, my grandfather spent a number of years, I mean, lots of years in Assam, and he would summer in Shillong, and through the rest of the year, he would be in Assam, in Tezpur. And he had a beautiful home in Shillong. I think it was called the Badubani House, if I'm not wrong, but I mean, I could be wrong. I was just wrong about the Cherrapunji thing. I was thinking hard about it. And I was like, 1,400 meters doesn't sound, or millimeters doesn't sound right. and now I remember it's 11,400 millimeters. That's how much it rains, which is about 450 odd inches of rain, which is about 40 feet of rain. Think about it. Think about it. I mean, 48 inches is 4 feet.
Where's my swimming goggles and flippers?
Yeah, there you go. So my grandfather, when he left that area and he left Shillong and Tezpur and he retired and he came away from there back to Punjab, he sold his house, and the gentleman who bought the house was the gentleman who owns the Delhi Mishtan Bhandar. And he told me, he said, your grandfather was a fantastic guy, that when we bought the house from him and he left, he gave us the present. As a present, he left his Cadillac behind for us. So I was like, yeah, grandfather, big man.
Don't lie, you said give it back.
But Niku, I'm surprised you don't remember it. Yeah.
I said वो गलती से रह गई थी, उसके पैसे लेने थे बाद में आके. That's why I'm here.
उसकी अभी वैल्यू 6 करोड़ 35 लाख है, बस आप 4 दे दो चलेगा. 4 करोड़ ठीक है बस. Special discount because I like grandparents.
I was trying to get free jalebi for that much, but even that we had to pay for.
Yeah, but it was really good. Niku, you don't remember it? Ajay made them like take the same shot of handing out samosas and kachoris about 17 times because it's a very narrow space and people either kept bumping him, going in front of him. He was like, by the end of it, the guy wanted to throw the samosas at Ajay.
Yeah, that sounds like Ajay. So the other thing about Meghalaya is, other than the nightclubs and these, trendy hotspots, what I really liked, at least the first few times you went there, was that road that bisects the golf course, right?
Yeah, that is really cool.
So basically, there's a golf course there, and one of the holes you have to tee off from one place, and then there's a road that is, and then the rest of the course is on that side. So I always used to wonder that is some hapless person going on a scooter or motorcycle, and some golfer goes patak.
I'm sure it's happened.
That's a Fauji golf course.
It's a golf course, and I mean, I don't know. I'm not sure if it is or not, but yeah, my cousin was posted there, so I used to go play golf with him. But traditionally, and this is always the case, even when I was a little boy, and used to go there in the summer sometimes. I remember that there used to be these archery contests on the golf course lawns because the grass was clean and green and open. So on Sundays, hundreds of people used to gather for these archery competitions where they have a small target and then people have their own different colored arrows and they stand back and there's a competition and they keep firing these arrows at these small targets till the arrow looks like a porcupine with like hundreds of arrows in it. And it was so much fun. And that game is still well and alive right now. I mean, it's a great source of entertainment and I think betting for the local people.
Yeah, they do a lot of betting on that. We weren't able to find it though because I think it was Sunday ko hoti and we were not.
It's on Sunday though. I've seen it happen all the time because.
But we've done some archery on one of our shows. Where was that?
In Ladakh.
That was different. Another this golf course thing was when we were on our way to eat at that Merin's place for Chinese food because remember in Meghalaya. After their Khasi food or Gente food or this, they love their Chinese food. Do you remember Niku? Niku's looking very blank. We went to that very narrow.
I remember. I also remember because I was getting annoyed because of traffic jam.
Yes.
We were losing light. Yes.
That's the place.
Isn't polo also big in Meghalaya? I thought polo was also, or am I mixing it with Ladakh?
No, it's called the Polo Bazaar, but I don't know why it's called the Polo Bazaar.
Yeah, but I remember that Chinese food is pretty good, man.
Yeah.
No, the big market in Shillong is the Bada Bazaar.
Polo ground archery happens in polo grounds or polo grounds.
I think it's called the polo ground, but no polo is played there. Yeah, so I remember the Chinese food sequence. I really enjoyed the Chinese food sequence. But where did we eat Khasi food there? Was it on the same trip or was that on the earlier one?
We had it on 2 or 3 trips. So the first time we had it at the Jado stall where we had the turmeric rice. Rocky had the Jado. Then we had that. Every time we've eaten there, they do that beautiful, I love how I'm saying beautiful, but pork with dark sesame seed. Yeah, you get that almost black look, the same like Naga food. You have the Dosniang and the Dokliye. They love their fermented pickled flavors. Yeah.
Exactly. It's a bit like, it's like a rack of, pork ribs, but that's amazing. And that is made in pretty much every place you go to. It's big over there. Pretty much every restaurant.
Yeah. Every Jado stall we went to was 3-4 trips that we went. They're always packed here. Because they're perfect, like people finish work or this and they come in there and they get their big bowl and they're helping of meat and rice and vegetables and boom, then they're gone there.
I just want to talk about the other place we went to was, we had this series of Highway on My Plate fans where a couple of our fans took us to this other place to eat and there was really good food.
Yeah.
Right. So the place that we had gone and we were having that black sesame thing, that was Donie. which is a pork dish with black sesame paste. And the black sesame seeds are called the donier, and the pork dish they make with it is called dokliye. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah.
So, and then, they had this putharo rice, which was just a little sour in like sort of pancakes. And then you had the puro, which is rice cakes, which are stuffed with pork inside them. And then we were drinking that khyat, I think, is a fermented drink, which is made with rice. And then, there's so much food there. Of course, once you got down to that really small stall, the Kirsoi Khasi food stall, it was called.
Yeah.
They had they had that dokliye masi, which was the mixed beef and onions, and the doshyang, which is the beef cutlet, and then the tung tap. How can you forget the tung tap? Yeah, Mayur, come on, we had so much fun with that. Yeah. The fish chutney, and the dosniye, of course, is the pig's intestine, and then jado, the rice that's cooked with pork blood and fat and meat and everything. Yeah. And Mayur got some nice dal. Mayur, I remember you having the dal here.
Well, Niku, do you remember this? This lady, and there was a young boy whose name whose name was Lelwin. So we were having lots of fun with this. Lelwin. And then she owned a coal mine, and she had a whole bunch of tattoos and stuff. And we put that little table right outside the place because we couldn't fit in. There was no place there because it's always, the Jado stalls are always like half the width of Rocky's shoulders. So we stood outside and we did this whole sequence, and that's where we ate and tried all this stuff.
Yeah, I remember that. That's why I was getting paranoid about losing light. One of the things in most part of the north is the sun comes up very early and the sun sets very early. It should actually be a different time zone. But the one thing that about Meghalaya is that it doesn't seem as remote as Arunachal or Nagaland. When you're like driving through there, you feel that, dude, you're really far away from anywhere. Meghalaya, you always feel that you're within like city. You don't get that away feeling that you get in Nagaland or Arunachal, even when you're driving from city to city.
Yeah, maybe it's something to do with the fact that, Guwahati is so close by and you just land and within 2.5, 3 hours you're up there. But Shillong does have a very warm, welcoming air about it also. Yeah. I really enjoy Shillong. There's a beautiful butterfly museum there that we didn't cover, but if any of you ever go to Shillong, go to the butterfly museum. It's an insect museum and it has got some beautiful insects from all parts of India. Of course, the Northeast has the most beautiful insects, which are like emerald green and powder blue and ruby red and bright yellow and purple and all kinds of different insects that you'll be very surprised at seeing.
Or eating.
कीड़ों की महफिल में वहाँ राजा रानी सब हाजिर होते हैं.
सब हाजिर है.
Did you come across black rice also?
Manipur. That's Manipur.
More in Manipur, but you get it
Manipur.
in some places in Meghalaya. Manipur and Nagaland are the places that are like really big for the black rice.
And where do they cook in stoneware? Is it again Manipur or is it in Meghalaya?
I don't think it's Meghalaya.
No, I don't think
Good
it's
point.
Meghalaya. We didn't encounter it in Meghalaya. Maybe it is.
We didn't see it. But while we're what Rocky was saying about the welcoming thing, look at how nice it was when we went to shoot the Christmas. First, we got invited to Pauline Barjari's house, and then we had all those young kids, the choir, perform for us. Then in turn, we sang Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer for them in the spirit of Christmas. Then we learned about the whole tradition of the Bam Khana, where the whole community gets together during Christmas and then everybody contributes with food and things. And then in the spirit of that, are you forgetting what we did for Christmas? We dressed up as Santa Claus and went to the orphanage and distributed all those presents to the kids.
But you guys will make the perfect Santas. Yeah, you have the size. बस दाढ़ी लगानी थी and
we just had to suck in our bellies a little bit and we were bang on Santa Claus.
You'd be an overweight Santa, come on. इतना भी नहीं है यार रॉकी, तू fit है, you're a fit Santa. You're Santa.
Santa Claus along with his friend Banta Claus.
Santa and Banta Claus celebrated Christmas there.
Yeah, but Christmas is the big sort of festival over there.
Huge over there.
Weeks before, people walk around singing Christmas carols, and there's a lovely spirit of there's a strong sense of community. The tribes that live in these areas are very close, and of course they celebrate their festivals so well. So people get together at people's homes. Everybody brings something to eat. They have magnificent meals.
Even on the streets, there's this feeling of jovialness all around.
Happiness, yeah. We were shooting at night. Remember how beautiful everything is lit up, and there's lots of colors and lights, and this is lovely.
एक मिनट, बाकी दो पार्टी भी कर ले. All those lovely people opened their house to us after we did our good deeds and went to the orphanage and distributed toys and gifts and sweets and all to all those kids. We then went to the home of a family where the lady of the house taught us how to make the traditional Christmas cake with the currants and stuff. we had like a little bit to eat with them. And then finally we ended up at the home of someone who is now a friend of Rocky's of mine, Daniel CM. Remember the designer? We had that party in their house and we hung out with all those people around the bonfire. It was like you'd known them forever. Every place you went to, they were like, yeah, come join in. And then suddenly you're part of it. We made ourselves welcome. We stayed there for quite a while. We did our food court, then hung out there. And Rocky and I now see him every time we go back. So it's been awesome.
That's unique to these hill places, because they're small. The sense of community and welcoming into your homes is very easy there. It's not forced or it's not hard.
Yeah, but Daniel CM is a really wonderful guy anyway. I mean, he's a brilliant designer. He's a brilliant young designer, and he's made a great name for himself. And if any of you from Shillong are watching this, please give lots of love to Daniel and tell him that I'm still waiting in Delhi for him to come and say hello, and Mayur is still waiting in Goa for him to say hello. So we don't know when he's going to be here. But anyway, that's a shout out for him. Yeah. And Prashant, the stoneware thing happens in Meghalaya also. I mean, I don't know if it happens in Nagaland, but I know it happens in Meghalaya. They cook with stoneware, and it's quite wonderful to sort of eat the meats that are cooked in these stones because they're super heated, the vessels, and there's something very wonderfully gentle about cooking in stone. I mean, nothing gets burnt and
they're naturally non-stick. So.
Yeah, they're naturally non-stick, and nothing. You can't burn anything in that thing here. So the flavors get really beautifully amalgamated. So they do it there also.
Other than cooking in stone, when we went up to Cherrapunji, we cooked on rocks which overlooked Bangladesh. So it's this really beautiful place we stayed at. So on one side there's this cliff and there's this like huge drop. And in the distance, you see the valley and you see the civilization there. There's a town or whatever. And that is actually Bangladesh. It's right on the border. And if you're not careful with your mobile phone and you don't put it off international roaming, it can catch network from that side. Then each call that you think you're making locally, you actually make an international call. So you got to be careful. And there we had, of course, it's beautiful. The newsletter will have photographs. In fact, if you want to subscribe to the newsletter with photographs of the places we've been to and some stories, write to homp2020@gmail.com. I repeat, HOMP2020@gmail.com. Or you can also just click on the link wherever you're listening to this podcast. There's a link there, and that link will take you to the form which you fill in. You will have subscribed to our newsletter. So what did we cook there, Rocky? Because I remember we set up quite an elaborate sequence there.
Whoa, yeah. What did we cook? We cooked something absolutely amazing. And before we tell you what it is, I remember the immortal words that didn't quite make it to the show. We were cooking with something that smelled so incredible that Nico was like, explain the smell. And I was like, there is no way I can explain it to you without being very rude to the local culture. So we asked the local guy who was helping us. We said, look, we are not here. So if we say something, people will mind, but you're a local. Why don't you explain to us what this smells like? And he said, my uncle told me once, a long time ago, my father told me once that if, in the summer when you're driving in the plains, sometimes you see dead animal on the side of the road, no? If all of us get together and we do one shit on the dead animals, that is what this smells like.
I said, I think we'll leave that on the edit table. We will not put this on it.
Yeah, so we went there for that episode of the smelliest thing was Turimbai, which is called Akhuni in Nagaland. I mean, all of the Northeast, they basically use this fermented soybean paste. So you boil soybean, you leave it to ferment, wrapped in various leaves, and then you put a charcoal on top, you smoke it, you dehydrate it, and then when you open that baby, when you unwrap that leaf, you remember everybody ran away.
Yeah, I remember
the camera
that. But I remember there was something else there that was cooked that was really nice, which Rocky really liked. It was a meat dish. What else did we cook there?
No, we did. But I mean, just to finish this point, when we were standing, you guys were standing about 50 meters away. That's about 150 feet away from us. And we opened the packet and everybody turned around instantly and they were like, what is that stink? Yeah, what is that stench? And we were like, yeah, baby, it's this Tungrumbai. So if you haven't eaten the Tungrumbai, put it on your list. Please make it a point to eat it. And once it's cooked, it tastes really well. So we cooked with it. We made some, I think we made some pork with it.
Yeah, because you really liked it. I remember you really recommended, you were telling me to eat it and you convinced me to have a bite. It was quite tasty.
Yeah. And then we made a chutney with it. And then we had, I think there was a chicken that they cooked, which was done Khasi style.
With the black sesame paste.
Without the Tungrumbai. Yes. That was really good also.
And Mayo, tujhe kya mila? Tere hath kya laga?
They'd made a green sabzi, a broth, and then they'd flavored with this turumbai and there was rice. And I had like one bite and then I couldn't eat here because, I've eaten it. The akhuni I've had in one vegetarian dish I can't remember. It just gave this nice smoky flavor. But this stuff in that broth with the leaves and stuff still smoking, that taste, oh Lord, no.
Too intense.
It's too intense. Yeah. I mean, it's too intense for anyone. I could eat the pork that they had made with it because that was, it fits in well. It sort of loses its potency. But the chutney that made, oh my God, I couldn't even start with that. Yeah, I was like, boss.
No, what does it taste like? I mean, describe the taste.
It's so what? If, in the plains when an animal is dead, when an animal is dead for 7-8 days, that smell, and then if all of us take a shit on that,
but then we are used to that. We've traveled with Mayur, you guys forget.
Then we take but then you pick up a piece and put it in your mouth. That is what it tastes like.
Oh Lord, we've actually gone 2 or 3 podcasts without any potty humor, but I'm glad we're back to that. But Niku, you've not done justice to the evening, that night when we were standing on the cliff, because it was really dark there. Because there's not, we at the end of like almost what looks like an abandoned road, and the sky was completely dark. And I remember, I don't know if it's Sylhet. It was one of the bigger cities of Bangladesh. And it was like literally seeing the reflection. Upar there were stars, and Niche there was just these lights from far away. It looked like a lot of the stars were being reflected on the ground. It's one of the most beautiful evening sights we've seen on Highway on My Plate.
In fact, no, when we were shooting that, it wasn't for Homp. I think it was for the other one.
LF, for smoky food, for
smelly food.
Smelly food.
But I will say this, I remember that moment. You were just standing there on the cliff. And I think Rocky had carried a nice single malt with him, which I must have mixed Coke with or something. But just that moment, I remember, it was so cool. And the thing is, why I feel blessed to have traveled all over with you guys. A lot of places, it was not the place. Maybe there wasn't so much to do. Like you wouldn't travel all that distance just for a moment. But purely because of the kind of places you went to, there were just these moments that were magical. And it would be difficult in regular life to say, let's go there just for that half an hour moment. You wouldn't do that. But that particular moment was one of them. It was stunning. It was amazing.
No, it was...
Niku, baby, I love you too.
It was beautiful because there was, the electricity had failed in the whole town. There was no electricity. It was absolutely dark where we were standing. And it was beautiful, stormy night and little sort of coolness in the air. And when we looked down far away, we could see the city in Bangladesh near the river that was all lit up. And it was such a great visual there. I mean, it just sort of sticks in the head, There's one of those things that you'll never forget in your whole life.
And again, at this place also, we were the only ones there. So clearly, this is a place that doesn't attract many tourists. Like they had 5 cottages and it was just us. There was no one else. There were no other guests in that entire place. Yeah,
we were also there at the wrong season. Yeah, I mean, we were there
predictably
in peak summer. I think we were there in like May or June, May. In end of May, there was absolutely nothing happening there. There was nobody and no one. And because the people come there to see the rain in Cherrapunji, the 11,400 mm of rain or 40 feet of it.
Yeah, I'll tell you guys to get ready with your food courts. We shall say goodbye. I have a few announcements to make, such as please give this podcast a high rating if you like it, because then it makes it more likely for others to find us. Also, you can write us a favorable review. That helps too. And why we would like more people to find this podcast is that until you can get to the highway, we will bring the highway to you through this and build a community of enthusiastic, avid travelers, explorers, adventurers, and foodies, so that when the lockdown ends, when we have defeated COVID, we will get Rocky, Mayur, and Prashant back on the highway to put out the mother of all shows, Rocky and Mayur Ride Again, and that we shall all do together. And we have some plans of how we will structure this so that we can also interact with as many of you as possible in that drive around India. So do write into homp2020@gmail.com or click on the link and subscribe to the newsletter. Now, we don't have that much time now to tell you about the other 3-day shoot in Meghalaya, which is the Eastern Air Command. EAC,
yes, Eastern Air Command, which is where Rocky shot the whole episode from a wheelchair, wrapped in a plastic bag because it was raining, so we had to be careful.
So you can read about the Eastern Air Command and the photographs in our newsletter, because we don't have enough time to put it into this podcast. But that was another, I'm guessing that's one of the 4 main Air Force stations of our country, right?
Yeah, that's the Eastern Air Command. For all of east of India, the Air Command is centered out of Shillong. They have a wonderful airport and they have a beautiful station there with absolutely fantastic, sort of facilities, and it's a wonderful place to be.
And it has one of the cottages. The president has certain cottages as his holiday cottages around the country. There's one in Mashobra. There's one somewhere else, and one of the president's cottages where it's his official cottage for holidays is in this facility right next to a lake. And my God, President ban jao, main to wahin rahunga yaar.
तेरे को president बनाएगा कौन?
Sign जो मर्जी करवा लो यार.
हाँ तो if you become the president, we'll get chilled beer and we'll hang out at the cottage with you.
हाँ वैसे ही करेंगे. फिर हम बोलेंगे राष्ट्रपति भवन नहीं आना, मुझे मेरे मिसाले वाले कॉटेज में मैं करूंगा, फाइल भेज देना, साइन करके भेज दूंगा. ठीक है.
Lovely, yeah. What a good idea. यार president बन जाए यार, कितने मजे आएंगे हमको. Can you imagine?
कितने मजे आएंगे. That's the plan. But let us say goodbye. Thank you for joining us on this podcast. We shall be back. I'd say, shall we commit Maharashtra? That's one mother of a state which has the most amazing bloody journeys we've done. So we shall be back with Maharashtra, but not before we give you
Food court. Playing Santa at the orphanage was our way of giving back. But the taste of that turumbai, we just couldn't hack.
मरे हुए भैंसे की हमने आंख फोड़ दी और रॉकी ने वरांटे में अपनी टांग तोड़ दी.
What?
The rainfall in Cherrapunji is magnificently high every year. But if you ever get down to CIJWS, they will train you like they trained us not to have any fear.
ये मयूर था क्या?
सच्ची.
So yeah, what do you mean Cherrapunji? Cherrapunji rains a lot every year. If you come to CIJWS, they teach you like us.
I have not spoken
to have
much.
any fear.
I have not spoken much, but I must speak up now. Rocky, terrible.
तुम लोग आज शाम से शुरू से मेरे against हो. The snake was, I never got bitten. My leg was not broken. These are all stories that you made up, and now in the end you're trying to trash my food court. I know your game these days. Niku, if you become president, I'm not bringing the beer to the cottage. The hell with you.
They're coming to the cottage. He's just not bringing the beer.
I'm still coming there, of course.
So to know more about that cottage and the Eastern Air Command, do subscribe to our newsletter. Until then, do, if you can help it, get involved with any organizations, neighborhood schemes, or outfits in your city, around your area that are feeding those in need in these terrible times, whether they're migrants on the move or whether they're people who are out of job and out of food. If you can help it and contribute in any way, do get involved in your city so that no one in our country should starve when there's so many who have so much. On that note, good boys, say good night.
Good night.
Good night, all of you. It's great chatting. We'll catch you again soon.
Good night. Sleep tight. Don't let those snakes bite.
Very good. Very
Liars,
good. So poetic.
Liars. No respect for poetry. None of you have respect for poetry.
All the News Laundry podcasts are available on Stitcher, iTunes, and any other podcast platform.
Please subscribe to News Laundry. Help us keep news independent. To catch all our podcasts on news, pop culture, current affairs, and sport, visit newslaundry.com. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.